Welcome to Talk It Out. We're your hosts. I'm Jason.
And I'm Aaliyah. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk It Out. We are on the second episode of our Beliefs and Religion series. We've had a pretty good response to the series, so I'm pretty excited about that. Excited to see where it takes us and where you guys are willing to share your stories and stuff like that. Last time we just talked a lot about kind of our experience a little bit with the church and growing up and whatever. So if you haven't seen that episode, highly recommend you go download that. In that episode, we did talk about our little questionnaire that we put together that we wanted you guys to fill out. So we wanted to kind of like go through a few responses today and also talk about some of our answers to the questions as well, and our insights and our thoughts. Was there anything you wanted to say before we get started?
No.
Cool. Let's just jump into it. Okay, so this is a 29-year-old female who is in Phoenix, Arizona. Their current belief system and or religion is LDS, and they'd consider themselves inactive. So that's definitely a big thing, like, in the Mormon church is there's active members and inactive members. And there's, like, for as long as I can remember, like, it's always, like, a topic of discussion in church is, like, the inactive members. And
basically, what it boils down to is if you are consistently involved with activities within the Mormon church.
Yeah, like going to church, and then also, like, there are other activities that go on throughout the week, going to those, participating in, like, callings, which, how do you explain callings? Is that, like, a pretty, like, self-explanatory thing?
No.
Like,
it's just like how, like, a lot of churches will have a pastor or somebody that's leading the congregation. It's kind of in that same wheelhouse where it's responsibilities within the organization
yeah,
that they give to just like regular everyday members of
so
that
like
church.
you can be called to be like a teacher to teach a group of people on Sundays, either like kids, teenagers, adults. Then there's also like callings of like,
I just feel like we're getting too deep into it for like just to answer.
Okay.
What active
Well,
and
last time
inactive
you were
is.
like, we need to say rah, 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 like break it all down. So I feel like I have to break it all
if
down.
we start breaking down the Mormon church, we're gonna be here for 6 hours.
Right.
Like, that's not a dig. That's just like there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot to explain.
Yeah. So the next question is, what are things that you love about your current belief system and or religion? And they said, I love that the family is the focal point. It's familiar and the promise of eternity. I feel like that is those are things that a lot of people who are...
Let me read that. Henry's whining was distracting me.
Yeah. Like, those are a lot of things that people who are members or active members or inactive members, I would say, are things that, like, they hold on to and they love about that belief.
Not only that, but I think those are the things that kind of draw people toward it to begin with.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the world we live in, especially today, is pretty messed up. And, like, when someone sees an organization or anything really that is promising them eternity, like,
with their family and loved ones.
Right. Like, yeah. I don't know how deep I want to get into this.
Get deep into it.
But for me personally, like, that's one of those areas where I see it going both ways. Like the promise of eternity, that alone, like I see how people are drawn toward it, but it also makes me question the authenticity behind it
Right.
because
Because it sounds
it
so
just
good.
sounds good. It's like
Yeah.
talking to somebody who's telling you everything that you want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's like the vibe that it puts off for me personally.
Yeah.
Because, of course, when you lose family members, especially when it's not one of a situation of they just had old age and passed away.
Yeah, like something tragic.
When it's a tragedy and they die early, and people are having a really difficult time wrapping their heads around how to move on and how to deal with that,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to take that route and kind of like use it as an escape of
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, they're telling me that I'm going to get to see them again,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to get to have an afterlife where I spend forever with them. And so, of course, people who are in the midst of tragedy are going to cling on to something like that because it
Yeah.
gives them a sense of hope.
Right.
And without the promise of an afterlife, it's very difficult to come to grips with those things for a
Yeah.
lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and like, I don't know, for me, I have always struggled actually. Like, this is one thing that kind of stood out to me growing up is when people would lose people due to anything, any like death situation. People would always say, like, I know I'm going to see them again. And there was always something in the back of my mind that was like, you don't know that though.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, that sounds really great, but you don't know that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how other religions kind of deal with it, but in the Mormon religion, especially if you grow up in the Mormon religion, you're being told these things from the second you can really even like start thinking for yourself.
Well, not even that, but like literally before when you're developing your cognitive thoughts,
Yeah,
these are the things that you're hearing.
right. Like parents will have their kids go up in the middle of a church meeting and they'll go up with the kid and like whisper in their ear like this is what you're supposed to say right now.
Hmm. Which is
And
like
like
bearing your testimony of the church. Like,
right. And then so it's always just this from a very young age or from the time that you become involved in it, you're being told that an afterlife is real.
mhm,
And in a lot of instances, you are highly encouraged to vocally repeat those things yourself. I know that this church is the true church.
mhm,
I know that there's an afterlife. I know that I'm going to see these people again. So I feel like when you're saying those things month after month, year after year to yourself, it's just like with anything else.
yeah,
If you speak it, you're going to start believing it.
right. Well, and also, I do think that it's really important to note the aspect of children in churches because developmentally, to be like saying those things over and over again, and it is a programming.
Mhm.
Like, you are setting kids up to be programmed into this belief
Yes.
system. And
And that's not meant as like to be a slight or anything like that.
no,
But it's just like with any parent.
yeah,
All parents program their children.
hmm,
That's what parenting is.
yeah,
You're passing down your beliefs, you're passing down the
exactly.
things that you think are true, and maybe you're not necessarily forcing those things upon your children, but just in a sense of those are the only things that they're hearing time after time.
Hmm.
It is almost like you're forcing it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's why it's so important to evaluate your beliefs, your behavior, your background, your it is so important to be able to evaluate those things because if you are a parent, if you are an adult, you were programmed as well. And you should be able to evaluate why you believe the things that you believe
Mhm.
in. And
Well, and I think there comes a time for all of us where, regardless of what we've been taught and what we've been told, we're gonna have our own thoughts,
yeah,
and not everybody follows through with those. They
yeah,
kind of just relying on what they've always been told.
right,
Um, but I think it's important to challenge your beliefs,
yeah,
regardless of what you believe
yeah,
in. You need to challenge your beliefs. You need to have that open mind,
right.
because a closed mind, no matter which side you're on, how you're looking at things, is not appropriate, I don't think.
No, not when we're humans with the capability to have like the greatest brains on earth.
Right,
Like it is your responsibility to handle that responsibility.
right. And so, like, if you grow up believing in a God, you should at least be open to hearing the other side, and especially if you are having those thoughts of like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about this, then I mean, you should think about it.
Yeah,
And if on the other end of the coin, like if you think there's no way there's a God and this and that, then you should at least be open to learning about the other side.
yeah,
And and either way, if you don't agree with what you're hearing or what you're seeing afterward, then it is what it is. But
yeah,
at least have that open mind to think about things.
right. Well, and I also do think that it's important that we base our beliefs. It gets tricky, especially with it being like an election year and people say, like, why can't we just have different beliefs and like why can't it just be left at that? Those are not the kind of beliefs that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Like there there are things that are okay and are not okay.
Yeah.
And like the worth of somebody's life should not come into question.
Yeah. If I believe it's okay to go out in the street and murder 18 people,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should
No.
say, oh, well, you should,
That's his belief.
that's his belief.
Yeah.
So we should be able to respect that.
Right. But we
Like,
also should be able to
there are still
hold
beliefs that are wrong,
yeah, and
morally wrong.
yeah, and we should be able to hold each other accountable for those things and also offer each other grace when we've been programmed to think a certain way and we're coming out of that or we're still in it. We should still be able to give each other grace. So that's like one of the biggest reasons with this survey, the way that I like and Jason worded things and wanted things to be presented is because we want it to be in a way where it's like go deep into this. Like what the next question is there
Well, and
any
I did want to say, just on that first one, I do one thing about religion and about the Mormon church, and I think it does get a lot of people, is when they said they love that family is the focal point, because that is, to me, a positive
mm-hmm,
within that religion, and the religions that I've heard of, is just the importance behind the family. I do
yeah,
think that that is, personally, I think that should be everybody's main focal point, the focal point.
yeah,
The most important thing in your life should be your family. And that's not to say you grow up in a situation like I did, where some of those bridges may have been burned a little bit. There might be some hurt
yeah,
and things that need to be worked through. That doesn't mean like, oh, I'm gonna freaking go to bat for them the same that I would Aaliyah, because this family and the dogs, like, that's the number one priority to me.
yeah,
And that's what I mean when I say I think family should be the focal point. It's
right.
like, not necessarily your parents, but the family that you chose.
Uh, yeah. Well, and also like I do think that one thing that gets missed specifically in the Mormon religion is there is certain behaviors and certain um literally like personality disorders that run rampant in the church. Um Narcissism is huge, huge in the Mormon church. It's just something that feeds that narcissistic tendency in people. And narcissism is a learned behavior. There's a lot of generational members of the church. So it makes a lot of sense. And the family, it should be the focal, but not just the family, but a healthy family should be your focal point. And I think that's where things get a little bit tricky within the church, is within the Mormon church, is that like,
Where are your priorities within the family?
yes, and also
Yeah.
like it's not about just looking like this perfect specimen of a family.
Right.
I know that's a huge thing. Luckily, it wasn't really anything that I dealt with like personally growing up, but I know a lot of people did, of this like image of her family. And that might be because I literally had like a divorced mom, and it was like a thing in the church. Like divorce is not, it's more accepted now, but it is still like pretty taboo, and especially back in like the early 2000s, very taboo. So my mom dealt with a lot of not okay things said to her, and like behaviors, but she decided to like stay and help people see a different side and stuff like that. But anyways, I just think that that's something that's big in the Mormon church that a lot of people talk about, is like the family is the focal point, but also what focal point is the Mormon church actually saying is important when it comes to the family. And it should be a healthy family unit, and I hope to see that change more personally.
Yeah. I just wonder what they mean when they say it's familiar. Like, is it just they just feel that way? It just feels familiar?
Yeah, or like maybe it's um they it's something that they practiced young, and so it just seems,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, next question. Is there anything about your current belief system and or religion that you don't like or agree with or hope changes? They said, I struggle with the people and the higher ups. Inherently, LDS members tend to be judgmental, more so those in Utah. I never had a problem with my faith till I moved to Utah. I also wish the church was more upfront about the shady or things we aren't proud of. As a member, it really messed with my face to find with my
With my face.
with my faith to find out things about the church from those who hated it. I love so many points of this because I I really struggle when people say like I love the church. I just like I can't stand the church culture. And I think that people need to remember that like the culture also builds the church, right? It's the face of the Mormon church, of any church. And it's important. And if you don't want to see,
Well, not only that, but like, if we really want to break things down here, um, the culture, if the culture is bad, what's influencing the culture to be that way?
yeah, that's a very true point.
Like, there's a reason that people act and say the things that they do.
Yeah,
It's probably because the teachings are making them feel validated in doing so.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that like when they say more so in Utah, I totally get it. I mean, I've heard my whole life like
Utah
Utah
Mormons are
Mormons are
different than
different,
any other
but
Mormons.
like they are the Mormons. We are in the literal like nesting place.
Yeah, but obviously I lived in several states when I was still Mormon, and states outside of Utah, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, all those places, it was a lot more chill. Like, the judgments and just all the negativity that you typically hear out of
Hmm.
LDS members is lessened dramatically
Yeah.
when you're not in this state.
Right. Well, and I wonder if that is just such a like there's a concentration of Mormons here. And so we don't have that like diversity that makes people
Hmm.
see outside of themselves.
Yeah.
I think that has a big part to do with it.
You can convince yourself if you're only hanging around people who are like you that
Mm-hmm.
everybody is that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I also do like that she had said, um, I wish that the church was more upfront about the shady things or the things that they aren't proud of, because it really messed with their faith to find out things about the church from those who hated it. And I do think that that's a really good point to make, is that if you are, it is okay to admit the things that were done in the past were done and that they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, I think that it is important. If it's something that you're burying and trying to hide, then clearly there's some wrong feelings around it. And you should be able to put those things out.
Well, not even that there's wrong feelings around it, but that you believe it was wrong or is wrong.
Yeah.
If you don't think something that you've done is wrong, there's no reason for you to hide it.
Yeah.
That's just like psychology 101.
Right. Well, and honestly, I think that is a big part. That is a big thing when people start kind of deconstructing those beliefs, and specifically within the Mormon church, that they realize that that's the fact that it was hidden and
Well,
clearly it was wrong.
well, and again, um, I'm not saying I'm not gonna say anything on here with the intentions of just being rude.
Yeah.
But like I said in last week's episode, there's going to be things that I say that are probably going to offend people if you're not willing to look at it with a certain lens. Um, because I'm going to speak my beliefs according to what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they don't line up with what a lot of members of the LDS faith accept.
Right. Well, and that's why you aren't a member of that church anymore.
Right. Um, but with that, talking about the church being more upfront about the shady things that they aren't proud of, and this is why I kind of prefaced with what I did, is so that I could say this is one of the things that really bugged me and continues to bug me about the Mormon church, is that there is like there's a lot of shady things that have happened just like with any other organization in the world. But the thing that bugs me is that first off it's swept under the rug. Secondly, when you're a member of the faith, the church leaders will tell you basically
Question.
not to follow questions that you have about it. If you have questions about it, they say, "Oh, just have faith and drop it." Like if you go out of your way to get answers about the doubts that you have, it's basically it's almost looked at as like a sin to do that.
Yeah. Well, they're literally like, this is something I remember growing up. I was middle school, high school age, and they had a general conference, which we talked about what that is last time. But somebody literally said, doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith. And that is actually something I remember when it was said, I was still in the church. That's something that stood out to me where I was like, that seems wrong.
It is because if you took a step back and put it into a context of a relationship, and I was to tell my wife or anyone was to tell their spouse, don't, if you have doubts about our relationship, don't, essentially.
Doubt your doubts. Doubt the fact that you are having
Doubt your
doubts
doubts
about this.
before you doubt me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's controlling.
Yeah.
It is, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And that's why it's something that bugs
It
me.
is so manipulative. And I remember when I heard that, it was something that I actually think about often because it is something that I still see often.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure.
I think that it is so manipulative. And
Well, and it's brainwashing.
yeah, it and I'm like, again, this is our opinions, but that is just wrong. It is wrong.
I mean, it is our opinions, but what we're saying also is backed by science as well.
Yeah,
So,
true. Very true. And then I also saw something that had popped up on my timeline actually recently that Dallin H. Oaks, which is somebody who is a high up leader in the church, in the Mormon church, had said, and I'll just play this clip real quick.
It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.
I'm sorry. What? What? There's so many levels of like that should be sending off like red flags to you.
but
In
there are people who are going to watch this and they're going to want to freaking fight us about this
I know.
because they're that wrapped up in it.
I know. And honestly, like I'm not saying that you can't believe in this church and you can't like do it. But do not be ignorant to the things that they are saying and teaching and influencing you to believe.
Well, and also, like, again, like I kind of touched on it last week with um, feeling like I don't really get the respect that I'm willing to give out
Mm-hmm.
to religious people in the context that, when I state my beliefs, oftentimes, especially here in Utah, people feel the need to correct my beliefs and interject with what they believe in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of me saying what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you want to, believe what you believe, do your thing. I don't care. But if we're going to have an issue, these are the types of things that I'm going to bring up.
Yeah.
Like if I feel like I'm being attacked, my beliefs are being attacked or being devalued, I'm sorry, but I'm not Jesus. I'm not going to turn the other cheek ever. You will never see me turn the other cheek. I am very much law of Moses, eye for an eye. The way that you treat me is the way that I'm going to treat you.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think that there can be a very happy medium in
I think there can be a happy
those.
medium as well, but I'm just saying if I get disrespected
Yeah.
at that point, you know, everything that I've been doing to try and be respectful is no more.
Right. Well, and at the end of the day, this podcast is like we are the hosts of this podcast and we held certain beliefs that we do not hold anymore and that we have deconstructed ourselves. And so we're going to share those with you guys. And it doesn't mean that we don't value your guys' stories and why you believe and all of that. We do value those things. But this is our experiences, our opinions, our beliefs,
Yeah.
our breakdown of why
We're
you
not
may think that way.
we're not just engaging in conversations like this with everybody out there
Yeah.
and just like being rude about it.
Yeah. But to continue with their answers, the next question was, have you had any different belief systems and or religions in the past? If so, what were they? She said that her family wasn't active until she was 10, but they were always they always identified with the LDS Church. So I think that's maybe why they like she would say that it was familiar, right? Like it was something that even though they weren't active until she was older, it's probably something that they were still like teaching similar principles of
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Um, so the next question is, why did you leave your past belief system and or religion? How do you feel about it? And I think they're answering this question more of like why they're inactive. They said, even when I hated the people in the organization, I never left because of them. I always left because my relationship with God, which is a whole can of worms. I left because the pressure of being perfect weighed too much on my mental health, so I just didn't want to think about disappointing God. And I think that that's something that Jason could definitely like identify with.
I mean, I talked about that on the last episode. That
Yeah.
was a huge thing for me. It was the guilt and shame that comes with falling short of
The expectations.
being expected to be perfect.
Yeah. Next one is, what has been helpful and hurtful as you've chosen a different belief system and or religion than friends and family? She said, I'm still LDS, but on my own terms. I still want to be authentic to my own morals and beliefs, just use the church to enhance my life. Yeah, I have some opinions about that I really don't think that you can be authentic to your own morals and beliefs when the church does demand certain expectations. I don't think that it's like an absolute you can't, but that is something that when it came to me choosing not to be a part of the Mormon church stood out to me is that I realized that I couldn't be authentic to my own morals
Right.
and beliefs.
Well, it's not just that you can't be authentic to your own morals and beliefs, but to be authentic to both things at the exact same time. I don't know if it's possible for
Like being authentic to being in the church and to
right,
yourself.
because if you're already feeling this way of like the church expects too much of me, expects me to be perfect in a way that I can't be, like that's where I get confused, and you know this with my dad and my stepmom. Like they're this right here,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like they believe in some of the fundamentals of the Mormon church, and they go with like pretty consistently are involved with it, but also their everyday lives, they don't really live in a way that lines up with it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so for me, it's like, I just have a hard time seeing the point of like holding on to both things
Yeah.
at the same time
Yeah.
because they are different to the extent that, again, you just almost can't say that you believe in this and believe in this in the same breath.
Yeah. No, and I think that that is something that was really hard for me to come to terms with when I decided that I couldn't and wouldn't believe in the church anymore, is because I remember I literally wanted to figure out a way to somehow be like a Mormon with more like Buddhist type beliefs and like tried to like make this like I can be both type of a situation, and realizing that like
Well, and
I
I feel
couldn't.
like you can, but not in the sense of like going to a place of worship
Yeah.
and doing it that way.
Yeah.
But like, there's nothing to say that you can't adopt
Oh yeah.
teachings and philosophies from multiple different
Right.
religions and just kind of incorporate them into your own life in your own way
Yeah.
and still have faith and still have a belief in a God or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's just, I don't think anybody needs to go to an actual building to be religious. I don't think you have to
No.
be surrounded by a congregation of other people who believe the same as you to have beliefs.
Yeah.
You can believe all of those things within the four walls of your house.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, Jason said in the last episode like he doesn't have a problem with religion, and I would probably say that like I personally I do have a bigger problem with religion, with organized religion, because it does just put people in boxes. It puts beliefs in boxes. It like and and that's so it's sad to me. It's sad to me that especially coming from I was born into a religion, I do feel like there are certain parts of my expansion as a human that were delayed because I was not introduced to more beliefs.
Yeah, you weren't given a choice.
Yeah. Um, next question is, if you've left a religion, what's something you wish you could say to people still in the religion? And they said, be true to yourself, which, I mean, I think that that's just a really good, that's a good principle to live by, is to be true to yourself. And what that looks like is going to differ from person to person.
Well, and I think that pretty much hits the nail on the head for me,
Yeah.
is to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason that I want nothing to do with any religion,
Mm-hmm.
but especially why I want nothing to do with the LDS religion, is because it is not in the slightest true to myself.
Yeah.
I don't feel good when I'm involved with it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ring true to me on any level. Um, but there's other people who maybe it does.
Yeah.
But also, we need to be honest with ourselves when it comes down to that, being true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can say you're being true to yourself till you're blue in the face, but in all reality, you are doubting your doubts before you're willing to doubt your faith.
Yeah.
And that's just not, to me, that's just not being true to yourself.
Yeah.
That's being true to an organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Next question. What's something you wish people knew about your belief system and or religion? She said, I wish people wouldn't put me in a box because of my beliefs. I empathize with everyone's experiences, but I but just because I'm still associated with the church doesn't mean I condone certain things. I think that it's really important if you're in this situation, if you don't condone certain things, I think that you should be loud about those things, because if you are associated with the church, it is probably going to be inferred that you condone those things, because that is what the church condones.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I agree with that. I agree with that completely. But especially with certain things, I think you should be loud about those things. Um, and again, I hope that you do feel true to yourself and that you still feel aligned enough to still associate yourself with that church if you are going to associate yourself with that church. But I do think it's important to look at if you are associating yourself with the church, what the church associates itself with, you are going to be associated with.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just a fact. And so, are you okay with being associated with those things?
Yeah, I mean, unless, like you say, you make a point to
Yes.
let people know.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to go blast it on your freaking Facebook wall or whatever. But if
Right.
you're having a conversation with somebody about a certain topic and you're just quiet about it, then naturally, of course, they're probably going to believe that. And the reason that that is for me, the reason that that might be happening to you, is because again, the church teaches things in a very specific way,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not a whole lot of leeway there where it's like, hey, here's this, you can choose to believe in it if you want. Like, that's not how it goes
Yeah.
with the LDS faith. It's, here's this information, this is what you must believe in, you need to believe this,
Mm-hmm.
this is right, anything else is wrong. So then from an outside perspective, of course you're going to look at it and say, well, yeah, again, like Aaliyah said, if there's somebody associated with it, I know that the Mormon church is telling them this is what you believe in,
Mm-hmm.
nothing else. So why would I not think that your association is the same?
Yeah. Yeah. When I do think that something that was really hard for me to deconstruct was, and still working on it, is realizing the cognitive dissonance that religion, especially high demand religion, bears on people, where it's it's hard to make those connections of I want to say like reality, but that's a little harsh. Um, of saying like um people people aren't putting you in a box. The Mormon Church is putting you in a box.
Yeah.
Um,
Or even people are putting the Mormon Church in a box, and you are inside of that box because you are
Yeah.
part of that church.
right. But not only that, but like, what box has the church put itself in? So just things to think about, I think. I'm really, really grateful that you did share these things with us, so thank you. The last few questions is just kind of a little bit, I mean, I wouldn't say lighter, but something that, anyways, blah, 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 blah. Let me just say what they are. What's something that you hope to understand more from this podcast series? They just said, I'm curious to see the direction. I think that a lot of people kind of have felt that way. Don't exactly know where we're going with it, but hopefully with this episode and the last, you kind of understand where we're going with it. And if there is another way that you would like to see it go, please share that with us. We would be interested to see how we could incorporate that into our vision. This is something that I'm really interested to see the more.
And just real quick, if we only get responses from people who are outside of religion or no longer practicing religion, then kind of the theme of the episodes are going to be a certain way.
Yeah.
But if we can get some people in here to say, like, people who are, you know, active in their faith, to say, like, well, this is what I believe, this is why I believe it, then I feel like it could be more of a conversation, and more of something that would seem to be more respectful, if you will,
Right.
because with it how it is now, of just people who are not really involved anymore, it's probably going to seem like we're just ragging on religion. So we need to have those responses from people who are also a part of it, not so that Aaliyah and I can sit here and argue you and what you say, but just so that it can give us more of a
different point of view and
a different point of
understanding.
view, and get the wheels turning in different areas.
Yeah, and also, like, we want all different types of faith. We want all different types of religion. We don't just want Mormons.
Yeah. Please.
Like,
we're surrounded by it 24/7, so.
Yeah, and also, like, it is an influence into our beliefs, and so we would like to see an outer, like, a more inclusive, a more well-rounded type of answers as far as different faiths and religions go. So please, please, please participate. We would love to hear from you. And don't take that as like, if you are Mormon, don't respond, because we still do want your responses. Please do respond. But if you are from a different religion or have left another religion, please still share with us. We would love to know. This question is something that I am really excited to see the different types of answers that we get come in. Is, if you could have the answer to one question from a higher power, what would it be? Because I think that would be, this is going to be a very, like, telling question of what really influences people to believe in religions and believe in higher powers. Why were you shaking your head?
I just feel like that's a tough question. Like, one thing.
I mean, it doesn't have to be one. It could be many if you're filling this out, if you have multiple, but like, if there is something that you could have the answer to, other than just like, are you real? What would it be? So this person said, how can I keep my family? Which I'm not surprised by that, because considering why they...
How can I keep my family, like, after this life or during?
Oh, I don't know.
I assume after.
Yeah, I'm assuming after, just because their points of why they like the LDS religion is because of eternal families.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, like, I agree with them.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing.
Yeah.
Aaliyah and I don't even obviously have children of our own at this point. We only have the dogs. And yet still, I think three or four times a week at least, I have the thought go through my head of like, man, one day these dogs aren't going to be with us anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, man, I wonder if I will ever
Yeah.
be able to see them again. I hope so,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to let that hope drive me to, believe in something that otherwise doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But I would like to know for sure if
Yeah.
just for the exact same reason at the beginning of this episode that I said I feel like it draws people into religion
Mm-hmm.
is because we all want to have that hope and that assurance of just knowing that it's not the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And then one last one is, what is a quote, musical lyric, scripture, poem, etc. that you've heard that has helped change your perspective? Um, I just love, this is kind of the philosophical part of me. I love things that make you look at things a different way or see things a different way and help change your belief system about either, like, I mean, I'm talking down to like literally just what you tell yourself every day, you know? So they had responded with this actually with more of a mantra and, something that they just tell themselves often is, I deserve good things. And I think that that is something that is important to remind yourself is there's there's no reason that you don't deserve good things. And then I also did add in a new question or spot for you to put things that's just anything else you'd like to share with us. So any other experiences or thoughts while you're filling out this form, please feel free to add to the form. Like I said in the past episode, we aren't looking for a specific type of answer, a specific length of answer of like in depth. Whatever you want to share and what you're comfortable with, please share it. If you've watched any of our other episodes or listened to our other episodes, being vulnerable is something that we're working on and we think is really important. And so it's a big part of this show. So we really hope that you can be vulnerable with us and we will be vulnerable to you in return. So,
And again, like, I just have to reiterate this because we want this to be a safe space for everybody,
mm-hmm.
not just people questioning religion, but also people who are part of it very much so. And I'm just thinking, like, for me personally, I'm very passionate when I speak about things that I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I post things on socials or something like that, if I'm just like shooting the shit, from the hip on what I believe, then I'm not looking to phrase it in a manner that is. It's not that I'm trying to be disrespectful,
But like
but I'm not trying
sensitive,
to dance
sensitive.
around everybody's feelings and beliefs out there either.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just straight up saying what I believe in without anyone else, engaging in conversation with me, then I'm going to be speaking way differently than if I was to be sitting down with somebody or reading through what
Somebody's
somebody
experiences.
believed.
Mm-hmm.
In those senses, I'm going to speak very much differently on it. I'm not just going to sit there and call you out or crap on you or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
I will do my best to be respectful.
Yeah.
Um, so I just don't want anyone to be put off by thinking that, oh, like Jason, he's a little bit intense. Like,
yeah.
I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm a little bit intense.
Yeah.
But I also know when to rein it in.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, we'll just leave it at that because we did, ramble as we do and like just take things into like 17,000 directions. But we do still have some responses to go through, so we'll keep sharing them and we hope that we get more responses so that we can go through those and decide what we'd like to share. And even then, I'm sure we'll have some that we just kind of go through a little bit quicker instead of like divulging. I think just because it's the beginning of the series, we got kind of our like, we want to get out our thoughts and points of views and stuff like that. So please, please, please fill out the form. We will have it in descriptions. Also, it is in the link in our bio on Instagram at talkitout_show. So please go check it out there. Give us a follow and participate in the stuff that we put on our stories. We'd really appreciate it. There's something I was going to say about that, but now I don't remember. So never mind. Alrighty. Was there anything you wanted to say?
I don't think so.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for listening to last week's episode and this week's episode, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
See y'all.